Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, where we talk all things true crime. So if you have no idea who I am and you've never heard of this channel and you are just here for the very first time by a happy accident, welcome, and I hope you enjoy today's case video. And if you do, I hope you consider subscribing by hitting that subscribe button below. And for all of my returning 10 to Lifers, welcome back. So happy to have you here with me today. And for anybody who is out there listening to the new 10 to Life podcast version of this case, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Music, welcome all of our new listeners. And if you want to check out the video version of the podcast, hop over to YouTube and you can see the video version where you can see all my crazy facial expressions, me waving the red flag every time some red flag happens, which happens literally every other minute, it seems like. And you can also see crime scene photos, case photos, footage, all of that good stuff. So if you want to check out the video version, come on over to YouTube and check it out. All right, guys, so the case that we are talking about today is one of those cases where I feel like we've actually kind of been hearing about this happening more and more lately. And it's one of those things where I have a hard time wrapping my mind around who could be that evil and who can be that vicious. And in this particular case, it's one of those where you think you know where it's going and you really had no idea. And it takes you somewhere completely different and then just kind of like floors you. So today's case, it takes us to Palm Beach, Florida. And on April 5th, 2022, an elderly gentleman called 911 and asked for them to come and help him at his house, which was located in a retirement community. Initially, the man had relayed to dispatch that he had several seizures in the last couple of days and that he was locked inside of his bedroom for the last 8 months. He also stated to dispatchers that he could not live this way anymore. So who was this man? Who locked him in a room for 8 months? And what the heck was going on? We've got a lot to unload here today, guys. So let's get into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
When sheriff deputies arrived on the scene at this house near Haverhill Road in West Palm Beach, Florida, fire and rescue began removing this older man who had called 911 from his bedroom and from the house. Upon just passing through the house, namely the father's bedroom, which was his living area, it became immediately apparent that the house was a complete health hazard. Additionally, it was noted that where this older man was actually locked up specifically, that environment was deemed unlivable by people on the scene. So police immediately called health inspectors to this house to check everything out. Deputies on the scene stated that they observed there were human feces covering almost the entire room. And they say that they have never seen living conditions like this and had just never seen anything like this, period. And these feces, which were stated to be everywhere, covered the entire room. They were covering the walls, the doors, and even the bed itself. Now, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with what feces are, but for those of you who may not be, feces is poop. So they walked into this room and there was literally poop everywhere. Poop on the walls, poop on the doors, poop on the bed, poop on the man himself, everywhere. Imagine that, seeing that, and imagine smelling that. Imagine, though, being that person living that. Even worse. But it even gets worse than that, if you can believe it. So while they were assisting this man onto a stretcher, they were lifting his head off of the pillow and cockroaches literally crawled out from underneath his head and body. So this elderly man himself was covered in feces. He also had bed sores on the back of his groin, on his back, clearly had been bedridden for quite some time. And this man also stated that he had not eaten in 4 days. Now, the conditions of this room, himself and the man, enraged responding officers, and they immediately declared that this was a classic case of neglect, severe neglect. When this man was taken to a nearby hospital in West Palm Beach, the sheriff actually escorted the ambulance and stood guard over this man to make sure that everything was going to be right as he was being admitted into this hospital, that he was going to get the care that he not only deserved, but so desperately needed. And the sheriff in his report stated, I observed the man in the hospital bed. He had feces all over him. Feces on his eyebrows, his ears, his beard, his face, his arms. Almost every visible surface of this man was covered in feces. Can you even imagine not only witnessing that, but being that person who literally cannot help themselves and are not able-bodied to do so, and being covered head to toe in feces? It is awful. So this man stated that he had called 911 because he couldn't live that way anymore, and that was a direct quote. He also stated that over the last several years, he had a number of strokes that caused him at times to be unable to walk. He says that there were times where he relied on his motorized wheelchair to get around, but that he wasn't able to walk or use that wheelchair over the last 8 months because he was locked inside of that bedroom. So even if he had an assisted device, he was unable to use it because he was locked up. But who locked this man up? And who would have such heartless disregard for his well-being to allow him to be covered in his own poop, feces, to have cockroaches literally living underneath his body as he lays in bed? Who could be responsible for something like that? So the man relayed to the sheriff that his son had actually been living with him along with his son's girlfriend for the past 2 to 3 years. And the man says that due to his fragile medical state after the strokes that he had had, he relied on his son for assistance in meeting the basic needs that he had of food and water and, his well-being. So as he was explaining this to the officer, he also tells him that he had not eaten in 4 days. He says that he often gave his son and his son's girlfriend money to purchase food for him, but that every time he did that, the son would spend the money either on food for himself or on something completely different. He says that he never received food from his son any of the times that he directly gave him money for that specific purpose. And he further stated that his son and his son's girlfriend had actually at one point taken possession of his debit card as well. And it's unclear if the son and the girlfriend were actually using his debit card to make purchases or, go shopping, buy things, pay for things, whatever, or if they took his debit card as more of a power play to make him feel more helpless and more dependent. So while taking the man's statement, he again stated that he had been locked up in that room for 8 months, unable to leave his bedroom for any reason under any circumstance. And he says that his son actually tied a piece of string on the outside of his father's bedroom doorknob and then connected it and tied it off to another door, ensuring that he couldn't move the doorknob and he couldn't escape from that room because the door was tied to that other one, literally trapping his father inside that bedroom. So he says to the sheriff that he had finally called 911 because he feared that he would actually die if life continued this way. So who the heck is this kid? Who is this son who would treat any human being this way, let alone his own father? Well, this monster son's name is Jonathan Woods, and he is just 22 years old. Pretty young to be so heartless and so cold. And while the sheriff was talking to the father actually received a text message from his son. And this text message was saying, "Thank you for calling 911," and saying, "Now me and my girlfriend are being arrested. Thanks a lot." And the text also says that he should have given him notice that he called 911 so that he could clean up the house before the deputies arrived. Okay, yeah, right. His priority wasn't allowing you the courtesy of time to clean up the scene to make it look like you didn't do anything wrong. Like, this guy is just delusional. So Jonathan was brought to the police station for questioning and to write out a statement. Jonathan willingly admitted that he was in fact living with his father and was in the role and the capacity of a caretaker for him. Jonathan also told police, and this is a direct quote, guys, "I know I haven't been doing a great job here lately, but he didn't smell that bad." I'm sorry, what? Didn't smell that bad? Any smell, any odor at all is a problem. But to say he didn't smell that bad, are you insane? What is going on? So Jonathan stated too that there was in fact food in the house and that he and his girlfriend ate when they were hungry all the time, that there was no problem, which that's all good and great. But what about your father, who hasn't eaten at this point now for 4 days? Jonathan and his girlfriend also admitted to police that they hadn't been taking proper care of his father. And that, again, is a direct quote. No shit. No shit, you haven't been taking proper care of him, because there were literal cockroaches crawling out from underneath his body as he's laying on the bed. There was feces covering his whole body, the doors, the walls, everything. And it gets worse. It gets even worse, guys. So police stated in their report that when they first approached the house, they were actually able to smell urine and feces all the way from outside of the residence. So a technician from the health department was later called to come to the scene and do a thorough inspection. The technician that responded put on a Tyvek suit, which is basically like a hazmat suit, an N95 mask, and booties upon entering this residence. That's how bad the house was. That's how bad the conditions were. Upon entering the house, the technician goes into the bedroom, and the technician observes the feces that covered the floor, the bed, every surface in sight. They observed garbage that had loosely been thrown all over the room, covering parts of the bed and the floor entirely. They also observed cockroaches crawling all over the bed, so many that they declared it infested with cockroaches. That's how many there were. The technician also noted that the bed that this man had been sleeping in could hardly even be seen due to both the trash on top of it and the feces. They also noted that there were bottles scattered throughout the entire room with a yellow substance inside, so many bottles that it reached the double digits. And the yellow substance inside those bottles was urine after it was tested later. And they were scattered randomly all across the room, indicating that this man, this elderly man, also didn't have a toilet to use or anywhere to go to the bathroom and was subjected to urinating in multiple bottles and then placing them wherever he could find an open space. But here is where things get even crazier and just truly baffle me. The technician exits this bedroom and observed a living area. And this living area was apparently where Jonathan and his girlfriend slept. And it was clean. There was a futon that they slept in. There was no trash anywhere. There were no visible stains on any of the bedding, on the sheets. It was perfectly tidy and clean. There was also plenty of food noted in the freezer and in the refrigerator. So why was his father not getting any food? And why was his father's room so inhabitable, filled with feces and roaches and just disgusting filth? Clearly, it isn't because his son was incapable of affording food or cleaning the home, or because he was incapable of doing it because perhaps he's an addict and always left everything in disarray. He was fully capable of cleaning and feeding and taking care of his father, but he made the active choice not to. After the inspection, there was little doubt that the son, Jonathan, had violated the law in terms of his role of providing care for his father in this retirement community. So after the inspection and interviews with police, Jonathan was arrested and he was charged. And he was charged with false imprisonment of an elderly or disabled adult and neglect of an elderly or disabled adult. He was taken into custody on April 6th with a $50,000 bond. Now, it's unclear if the girlfriend was also charged, as her name actually doesn't appear in any of the documents. The father's name also doesn't appear. It has been heavily redacted, I assume for his privacy. But currently, Jonathan remains in jail, and the condition and the whereabouts of his father now are unknown at this time, which we can only hope that he's in a facility in which he's being taken care of now, looked after, and getting the care that he needs. But my question for you is, what do you think that the son's motive was in all of this? Because again, if he was fully capable of being a caretaker and providing for his father, as he had no issue keeping his area of the home clean and had no problem keeping the refrigerator fully stocked, was the motive pure selfishness and laziness? Did he just not want the responsibility of taking care of his father? Could it have been resentment? Could something have possibly happened in his childhood that he was harboring resentment and anger of some kind towards his father? But I would think that if that were the case, surely he would have told the police what had happened to deliver some sort of explanation for his actions. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Because we've heard a lot of these cases lately about family members locking family members inside rooms for various reasons. Now, there's two pieces of it. I can't wrap my head around it because I can't understand how somebody could be that evil, but especially towards your own parent, to allow them to just stew in their own filth and feces for 8 months, not allowed to leave the bedroom, seeing the garbage collect. Even if he hadn't been fed in 4 days, he clearly has been fed at some point within those 8 months. So the son was aware of what the living conditions were. He would walk into that room. He would see the feces on the wall, on the door, on the bed. He would see the cockroaches. He would see the water bottles filled with urine, and he would choose not to empty them. He would choose not to clean it. He would choose not to do the laundry. Why? Why does somebody have that much evil embedded in their soul? And what could possibly be the motive for this? Put him into a care facility, and I know those get expensive, but surely there are other options here if you don't want that responsibility. But I want to know from you guys, what do you think and what do you make of this case? So please let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with me today. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, please don't forget to rate this episode. And if you are watching with me here on YouTube, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and show your support for the channel, and subscribe or follow the podcast if you haven't done so already, so that you can stay updated of new cases that come out and updates for existing cases that we have covered. Thanks again for tuning in with me today, guys. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.